Hey, it's Marie Forleo, and welcome to another episode of Marie TV and the Marie Forleo podcast. So look, if you are tired of being on the hamster wheel of life and chasing one goal after the other, and never feeling satisfied, you are going to love today's episode. Sheri Riley is a wife, mother, daughter, entrepreneur, empowerment speaker, high-performance life coach, and award-winning author who has figured out how to make it simple. Today, she's going to empower us with her principles of exponential living, which are a guide on how to stop spending 100% of your time on 10% of who you are. Sheri, thank you so much for making time today. It's so great to have you on the show.
Oh, gosh, I'm so excited to be here. You know, I love when you have your conversations, your Marie Forleo TV and podcast. I just love your interview style. So to be here talking to you today, I'm excited.
Thank you. And as I shared in the opening, Exponential Living, you know, you and I have been going back and forth a little bit in DMs, and I just love your book. It's fantastic. I'm really excited to get into everything. I was telling you, you know, we have our annual company 2-week summer break. And so your book was the book that was with me on the beach. And I'm just underlining. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be such a great conversation, because everything you're talking about in Exponential Living, stop spending 100% of your time on 10% of who you are, is ideal for the season and the stage of my business and life. And we can kind of unpack that a little bit, but I want to dive into your story. So can you take us back and share a little bit about how you got here? You were this power broker in the music industry. You have such rich layers of experience that got us here. And I want people to hear your story.
Well, I'm going to tell the thumbnail version of it because it's so much. It started when I was about 14, 15. But I'm from a small town. I'm a small town girl. I had these big dreams of working in the entertainment industry. And to be honest, people thought I was crazy because here I was 14, 15. I'm going to date myself. So this was pre-Google, pre-cell phones, pre-computers, pre-internet. Yeah. And so when I was talking about the music industry and I was going to live in Atlanta, I'd never been to Atlanta, and the music industry was in New York and Los Angeles. So literally I sounded like I was going to build hotels on Mars. Like that's how realistic it was. But after a whole lot of no's, a whole lot of working for about 10 years, I ended up as the head of marketing at LaFace Records, where I was doing the marketing for Toni Braxton, TLC, Usher, the Olympic album, Outkast. I mean, some of the most phenomenal artists of the 90s and still to this day. I love the people I worked with. I loved what I was doing. High 6-figure income, mid-20s, bought my mother a home by the age of 27. I mean, this was my dream. And I was miserable. I was absolutely miserable. My hair was falling out. And I thought that it was just, I needed to do more. So work harder, Sheri, connect with more people, buy something different, go on another trip. And I literally crashed and burned. Like people ask me, how did you leave LaFace? I crashed and burned. But what I discovered is that I was spending 100% of my time on 10% of who I was, but expecting 100% of my fulfillment. And so I had this amazing career, but I didn't have a good life.
And did you start hearing the whispers, you know, like something's a little off? And then did the whispers start to turn into an audible voice? And then it starts to turn into a bit of an internal yell until your body is just like, no more. Can you peel back a little bit about that internal experience of feeling you go in that direction of going like, I'm miserable, I need to stop?
Yeah. You know what? I thought it was, I didn't hear the whisper, even though now looking back, it had been a loud scream the whole time, but I didn't hear it. But what it was is I felt like I needed to work harder. I needed to learn more. Oh, I just haven't reached the goal. You need to be vice president. When you become vice president, oh, you need a bigger expense account. Oh, when your artist wins Grammy of the year. Oh, so I felt this thing, but I thought that it was the drive pushing me to do more. instead of understanding what was really crying out in my spirit and my soul was the need for peace. Like I needed to understand that it wasn't about getting more, doing more, becoming more, but it was genuinely about having that place of peace right where I was with what I had. And then understanding that was what my desire was, not more, but to appreciate what I had and really understand I needed more peace, not more things.
And did you, when you finally stepped away, like that first, resigning, giving your notice, letting your friends and people know, can you walk us through what that was like from an internal perspective? What were you saying? What were you thinking? What were you feeling?
I felt amazing. Everyone around me thought I was crazy. My dad thought I'd had a nervous breakdown because literally, Marie, I resigned on June 5th, closed on my house on June 6th. My last day was June 19th, and I moved into my house June 19th. Who does that? Like, my dad was like, you've had a nervous breakdown. And on top of it, I was telling everyone, all I want to do is sit in my yard and play in the dirt. Like, I just want to plant things.
Yes.
Like, I was like, so everyone was like, she's lost it. But for me, it was the first time that I genuinely felt the peace, that small voice you were talking about. It was the first time I really felt it. And what I realized later was working in the music industry, working at LaFace was only one of my dreams. And so the truth is, if I hadn't crashed and burned, I would have honestly stayed at that company years longer than I was supposed to, because that was only one of my dreams. I also wanted to be an entrepreneur. So the crash and burn was really the gateway for me transitioning to the next phase. And I felt that peace in me, but I wasn't clear about it until much later.
Isn't it so fascinating that sometimes some of our biggest moments of pain and grief and disappointment lead to our biggest breakthroughs? And in that moment, they're painful and there's tears and there's doubt and there's fear and all of these consistent things that we human beings go through. And then on the other side, we're like, whoa, that could have been the greatest gift of my life.
But it's what you said. It's that still small voice that's always kind of there going, this is right. This feels good. But we fight it, but it really is that small voice that's affirming you. This is it. It doesn't, because everyone was telling me I was crazy.
Yes.
Everyone was telling me, Sheri, how could you leave? The music industry is great. What are you doing? My father, who was the most solid voice in my life, was like, I don't know what you're doing. I don't understand this entrepreneur thing. But underneath all of that, there was this piece of, this is exactly what you need. And every time I've had like a broken place in my life, and I've had some tremendous breaking places in my life, just how will I ever recover? But there's always been that still voice, that silent, calm peace somewhere in me that says, you know what? If you can fight for your peace, you will get the power to make it through this. And you're going to have something better on the other side.
I love that you're mentioning that small voice too, because my mom, when I was little, taught me that voice was God. That was my direct line. And she was raised Catholic. And so she kind of rebelled a bit against formal church, but she's very, very, very spiritual. So she kind of passed that down to me, that she's like, whenever you hear that small voice, Marie, that is God talking directly to you. And you got to listen. You got to listen, because it's not going to make sense to the outside world, but inside it's always guiding you on your path. And what I'm hearing you say, Sheri, is that voice, it sounds like when you begin embracing this notion of exponential living, and we're going to dive deeper into prioritizing peace, which again, I read this from you and it made my heart burst open. And I'm like, Sheri, yes, thank you. But when you start doing that, that voice, in my experience, becomes even more clear, and you get to trust it, especially because, again, it will lead you to places that you couldn't have anticipated, and that often the rest of the world, because of our society's definition of success, it's very, very different. And I feel like that voice leads us to be our most courageous, creative selves.
You just said all three words, right? Peace, clarity, and courage.
Oh, I didn't know that. I
You
love it.
literally, but it really is. I mean, when I tell you peace, clarity, and courage, that is the essence of exponential living. But I'm going to share with you, here's the thing, for like now, so many of my colleagues, so many people go, oh my God, Sheri, the message is everything. But for the 12 years that I was on the journey of writing this book and the 12 years of transitioning out of LaFace, when I was talking about peace and clarity and courage, people are like, okay, that's crazy. No one wants to hear that. Like, unless you're talking to me about how I'm gonna make more money or how I'm gonna get that next promotion, like what you're saying is crazy because everyone equated this peace to kumbaya. I got to go sit in the corner. I need to be rocking and finding crystals, instead of understanding that, no, this is where our true power is, because this is where that still small voice begins to get louder and louder, where we get the clarity, where we get the courage, but more important, where we really get to define what's most important to us. So
Yes.
for years, I was this anomaly, like, here she comes again, talking about, peace instead of a Birkin bag. But it's watching that transition of now how important it is for people to understand that peace doesn't remove the desire for material things. It doesn't minimize the impact that you can have in your career. It doesn't take away the power that you possess in relationships. It literally becomes the anchor so that you can really fully enjoy all of those things that you work so hard for.
Yes. And that, I'll tell you, that has been something that I'm continuously unpacking for myself. I have this deep, deep, deep work ethic that came from my own families, just a lot of scarcity, a lot of fear, a lot of not having a lot. So you just work to produce. And I love, one of the things about getting older is just the perspective, right? To be like, well, what the hell am I working my ass off for 24
Right.
7? And I'm not enjoying any of the fruits of my labor or just the experience of being alive. I want to go back to a little bit earlier around Usher, because my sense when I was reading your book was that small voice was telling you then, when Usher, and please correct me if I'm getting the details wrong, the potential for you guys to work more closely together was there, and you were like, you know what? No.
Wouldn't do it. Yeah.
Tell
And
us
he
that
did
story.
not understand it. Yeah. So when it was time for me to resign, I knew, like, up until that point, it had really been me, him, and his mom really leading the charge, the label. And he was growing. He was 15, 16, 17, teenager. There was some struggles. Everyone knew he was talented beyond measure. But what do we do with this? Like, what do we do with this 40-year-old charisma and this 17-year-old mindset and body? And so him and I just really formed this brother sister bond. Um, but when I resigned, I knew he was 21, he was 22. I'd seen so many artists during that phase just really lose themselves and then lose their career. And so, Marie, what I would say to him all the time is, I'm more concerned with you, the man, than you, the brand.
Mm.
And that was my heart. That was my heart for him. And so, I told him I wouldn't work with him, and he was offended. It was like, it doesn't make sense. Honestly, for about 10 years, he came with many opportunities to run his foundation, and I would always say no. But about 10 years later, he hit a place in his life that, honestly, it was a make or break moment in his life. And that's where he finally got it, because he knew I could be the person that he could come to. I had no vested interest, and he could always just be himself. He never had to be anything other than him. And it was a critical place in his life personally. So 10 years later, he was like, my God, like, I get it now. But how many people walk away from that level of success or access from a professional standpoint, especially as an entrepreneur? I mean, Marie, come on.
Yes,
That's the kind of client you launch a company with, right? Like,
completely.
that's the kind, yes. But here we are. I have two children. He has his. We got these relationships. We are forever bonded. So the greater gain was my heart for him as a man versus him as a brand, because I knew he would be successful, which, duh, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so but I've made those kind of choices multiple times in my career and in my personal life, because I've always felt like if I could do the right thing the right way, I'm always going to win. I'm always going to win. Yeah.
That's why again, so much in your book, I was just like, I think Sheri and I are meant to be friends, because there have been a
Yeah.
lot of things in my entrepreneurial journey, stuff that I can't even really talk about, but like where I've said no to big things for that same exact reason. Something in my heart was like, no, like,
Yeah.
even though on paper, everyone would be like, you got to do this. This is the quote unquote supposed next level. Or how could you say no to so and so? And I'm like, that faith inside of trusting my heart and just trusting that I can make hard calls. And it's not always about, what you can gain in the short term. It's about the long term and trusting that heart. And so I appreciate you sharing that story with us, because it's important. It's important in this day and age. And there's so many entrepreneurs that watch our show that, those opportunities come across your desk. And if you're not solid and strong in yourself and your faith, you're going to say yes to things and then wind up usually looking in the rearview mirror going, I should have listened to that small voice. I should have
Yes.
listened. Yeah,
Yes. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
that's right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, I want to talk about peace a little bit more. I know we dove in for a moment, but you shared in the book, balance isn't the answer. And
Yeah.
pursuing peace is not about work-life balance. Can you walk us through that distinction? Because I think it's important. Like you said, this isn't
Yes.
what you're prescribing is not like, hey, we're going to sit kumbaya or meditate all day and not have any problems. Just be like, I'm just so peaceful. No, that's not what you're talking
No.
about.
And in the first 60 pages, I'm like, balance is a myth.
Yes.
Balance is a myth. I don't believe in balance, because the reality is balance says, if I'm sitting here having this amazing conversation with you and my daughter needs me to come pick her up at school, I could go do both, but I can't. And so balance makes me feel guilty because it means life has to do like this. And that's not reality.
Yes.
What I totally subscribe to is full life integration. And full life integration allows you to, one, give yourself permission to get help, right? So it's like, what's the village I need? So if I'm here with you, who are the people that I've put in my village that if I need to go get my daughter, they can pick her up? And when you think about balance, you're always like, how do I make the scale work? But when you think about full life integration, it's like, what are the pieces I need in my life to make it work? And that's the big difference between balance and integration. And then when you add peace to that, it really is not about making everything work perfectly. Like the biggest issue people have with peace is that means everything is going to be fine. Like I'm going to get to a place in my life where the boat is never going to rock. There's never going to be another problem. Like life is smooth. And that's a lie. that doesn't exist. And so when I was writing my book, a good friend of mine, I asked her, for a year, will you commit to once a week, coming on a call with me and be my vision partner? Just really help me flush through this concept. And so on one of our calls, I said to her, the core of this message is peace. And she lives in New York. So she was like, Sheri, there's no such thing as peace. Like you can't get, like, she was like, you can't get in a yellow cab anymore and it just be quiet and calm. Like now there's advertisement playing, like there's no such thing as peace. So she's like, I love everything, but take peace out. And I respected her, but I'm like, that's the core. And so what I began to share with her in my favorite book, it talks about how, Jesus is in the boat and he's asleep. And the disciples are like in the boat with him, and it's this crazy storm, and the winds are going every place, and the boat is rocking and everything. And the disciples are like, oh my God, like he's asleep. Like, does he not realize we're going to die? Like, like he's asleep. The winds are going crazy. We're rocking. And they literally wake him up, and he just says, peace, be still. And what I take from that is peace is always available to us. We have to choose it. So it's not about the weather, the water, and everything being calm. It's about you understanding the power you have when life is out of balance, when things are going crazy, when you feel like you're overwhelmed and out of control. And that can be good and bad. And so when we really lock into the core of everything is peace, then that's when we're able to truly walk and own our greatness instead of trying to prove our greatness.
Mm, please. Yes. And yes. And yes, Sheri.
Yeah.
That proven, we got to let that go. And again, I'm raising my hand to that. I think I spent so much, again, this is why I really enjoy getting older because the perspective and the wisdom. And I just remember that feeling in my early 20s of like, so desperate to prove, so desperate to prove and achieve and to like, I fit in and I can do this and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
You know?
Exhausting. Like, yes.
Let's talk about ownership because that's it's like one of my favorite words, and just taking ownership of all of your choices. Can you tell us how ownership relates to exponential living?
Yes. So ownership is very big. It's in the very first principle. Exponential living is literally 9 principles that when we live these 9 principles, that's when we get the peace, the clarity, and the courage. And so the first principle is living your power. And the second key to that is ownership. Like, what are you focused on? Like, what are you focused on? And the reality is we're so busy with this massive to-do list. Oh my God. I want to just take the to-do list in especially every woman's life and just rip it up and throw it up like confetti. Just like, it's just, oh my God. But the thing is that it's not about the habit of just throwing everything on our to-do list. It's really about what's most important. So back when I was trying to write this book, literally, so you'll appreciate this as an author. It took me 7 years to write the book proposal,
Mm.
not the book. Okay. The book proposal, as you know, is pretty much a glorified outline, right? It's a
Yes.
very thorough outline. So 7 years to write a book proposal. In December 2014, I literally took everything off of my to-do list and I took ownership of what was most important. I wanted to lose 25 pounds because I needed to do some things with my health. I decided to increase my speaking engagements because that's how I wanted to generate revenue. And I was going to secure my publishing deal. Those 3 things. If what was on my to-do list didn't directly or indirectly impact those 3 things, I took it off. That was the second week of December 2014. Now remember, 7 years to try to do a book proposal. 4 weeks later, January 7th, 2015, I sent my book proposal to my agents. They called me within 15 minutes and said, "Oh my God, Sheri, you found your voice." 4 weeks later in February, I had 4 major publishers wanting to purchase my book proposal.
Come
Right?
on. Come
Because I
on.
took ownership. I took ownership of what was most important. I got rid of all the ancillary. Let me tell you, the biggest thing when you take ownership is when you start to recognize when opportunities are actually distractions.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, because most everything on my to-do list was a distraction. And then once I secured the book deal, then what do? You go get the next most important thing. And then you add that to your top 3. So in that ownership, it allows you to get focused. It allows you to understand where your real value is. And then it goes back to that, stop trying to prove you're worthy and just know you're worthy. But it gets rid of the distractions. Like here's the big one. It's so easy to say no when you're clear on what you're taking ownership of. People go, "Well, I don't know how to say no." You know how to say no. You're just not clear on what to say no to.
Yes, Sheri. Oh my goodness. So one of the things I live my life by, and I've been doing that in this season, especially like this year, 2020, my goodness, right? All
Yeah.
the things. But one of my little mantras that helps me keep my head and my heart straight is simplify to amplify. So the less remember you're talking about you want to like sit in the soil and just like look at your plants
Yes.
and stuff. So for me,
Yes.
like the gardening analogy, if you prune this beautiful bush or tree or plant back, it looks like, oh my gosh, you're taking everything away. No, the energy is getting focused, right? Just like what you were saying. And so what is left becomes so beautiful and strong and rich and robust. So it's that when I read that you slashed your to-do list by 80%, I was like, yes, Sheri, yes, simplify to amplify. And the result, my goodness, it feels good. But, and I just want to underscore what you said, because it's so right on. It's so wise around, you know, it's not that you don't know how to say no. It's like, when you know what's important, it's a lot easier to say no to what's not. And that discernment and that courage to say, these are the three things that are the most important to me at this stage and this season of my life. And then you can say bye-bye to everything else with love.
And with love.
With love.
But it increases our productivity. Like we're so concerned about having this massive to-do list. And then we're so concerned with when I check everything off, then I can give myself a pat on the back. But were you productive, or were you just busy? Did you just burn yourself out, but you didn't get anything done? Did you move the needle an inch, or did you go a mile? And so when we get more concerned with productivity instead of busy, and I talk about that in the book, from the Midwest, right? It's all about work ethic, but we work for the sake of working. Like we work for the sake of working versus what is it all about? We're supposed to put ourselves in a position where we can enjoy the fruit of our labor, but we're just always laboring. We're just always working.
Yes. And, you know, I think also too, because you and I are of the same era where we remember, right? Before social, we remember before these things were like everywhere. And I was talking to Josh about this. I'm like, I'm kind of done with this thing. Like I'm legitimately done with it. There's so much more to life outside of these screens and outside of social. And it's like, again, another underpinning for your book. It's like, you don't have to spend all of your time focused on that career and trying to get that approval and that appreciation and that recognition and that significance from a place where it's never going to come from, not in a fulfilling way. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something real quickly to that point about like social media. And I'm so proud of my daughter. She came to me and my husband 2 days ago, and she had this laundry list of items. It was probably about 25 things. And at the top of it, it said, what I do instead of my phone. And she sat down with us and she said, God, you know, she's virtual learning at this time. And so she said, Mom and Dad, I don't want to be on my phone. I don't want to and it's a habit. I just pick it up. So she came up with a list of like 30 things that she can do instead of getting on her phone. So she's like, I can paint, I can read, I can work on my room. And so proactively, she at 13 is like, I'm over it. Like, I'm over this phone. Like, there's so many other things that I want to do. And I mean, it was little things. Like she said, I want to sit quietly and just enjoy the moment. I was like, yes. Secretly, I'm like, yes. You know?
And I love that she came to that on her own, right? On her own.
Yeah. Yes. And so even I say with our age group, we're over this thing, right?
Yes.
But I think the younger generation is saying, give me something else. Like she had to sit down and figure out something else. And that's why even with Exponential Living, because when I was writing it, my agents were like, people are going to have to be 50 plus to really get your book. Okay, maybe 45. But every meeting we went to with publishers, as you know, you'll have the editor and the marketing person in the meeting, right? All the marketing people were under 30. And every last one of them was like, you gotta get this book. Like, yes. I need this book. I need this book. Like, yes. Like, I want this book for me. But it's because they want options. Like, even the younger generation is like, give me something else other than this phone. I want to be able to experience being able to talk to people outside of a DM and a text, or being able to go and walk around a garden and just look at the beauty of the flowers. But we have to be intentional, like my daughter, and we got to really sit down and ask ourselves, what does make me happy? Do you know how many people, Marie, don't even ask that question? Like, they just on the gerbil wheel. Like, what makes me happy?
Yes.
What do I really enjoy? Yeah.
I've like this entire 2020 experience for me, just the pause and the disruption, like the feeling like it's like an enormous global record scratch, right? It's just like
Yeah.
like everything that we all thought we were doing, and myself included. What's been so, there's so much pain and there's so much suffering and there's so much hardship, and we all feel that, and simultaneously holding on to looking at things from a new lens and saying, for me, identifying all the places where I've been on the hamster wheel. You know what I mean? Like where I was doing things just because that's the way we've always done it. And, I'm a creative woman. I like producing things. I like making a difference in the world. And I think one of the greatest gifts of this year, and again, I just love that we're connecting. I love you and I love your philosophy and I love this book, this was like such a beautiful highlight and underscore to like, hey, Marie, maybe it's time that you prioritize peace. And I've been doing that actively. And I just want to thank you because again, I feel like I have Sheri in my ear now. And it's like the times when, 2020, I call it like it's a surprise box every day. Like you just never know, right? And
yes, every day.
Every day is a new surprise box. And oftentimes it's like, it's maybe not a pleasant surprise that comes through. But this notion of prioritizing peace has made such a difference to me because as you were saying before, I'm like, oh, no matter what's happening on the outside, I get to center myself and decide how I want to show up in response to whatever the surprise box of the day is.
That's
and
it.
To come from that place of peace, it's made a real difference to me. It's made a humongous difference to me, even in my business thinking too. Like, am I saying yes to something? Like I have something I have to say no to in a little bit that I said yes to pre-COVID, pre-whatever. And I'm like, does continuing to go in that direction feel peaceful? And I was like, hell no. That is a big hell no. So it needs to get a compassionate and loving, no thank you at this moment.
Yeah. And no is a complete sentence.
That's right.
Complete sentence. And the power with peace is, and that's why exponential living is peace, clarity, and courage. Because when you get that peace, just like you in this decision, peace automatically, it is a guarantee. Peace automatically gives us clarity.
Yes.
And when you put peace and clarity together, oh my God, you have the courage to do anything.
Yes.
So you have the peace about the decision. You have the clarity around the decision. And now you have the courage, like, you're like, nope, can't do it. Nope.
Yeah. I'm good. Like freedom, Sheri, is my highest value. And that I see it works so beautifully together because when I'm at peace with my decisions, I feel free. And I feel a sense of energy and a sense of aliveness and that sense of fulfillment that, as wonderful as it is to achieve things and create things, just can't come from anything else.
Exactly. That's it. I tell my clients all the time that money and fame and access and success and achievement in your career, even the love of a good woman or a good man or amazing children will never give you peace. It will never give you peace. And so we pursue those things because we feel like if we get the money, then we'll have some financial security, or if we get the relationship and the love, we'll have some social, emotional security, or the career, the title, then we'll have the status and it'll give us the security. And so if we get that security, then we'll have peace and we can go, the worst thing that can happen to a person is to achieve everything they've ever desired and realize that it won't give them peace. And that's where the destructive and self-sabotaging begins. That's where the imposter syndrome lives. That's where we get to that place where we go, I'm just going to tear up everything. I'm going to, midlife crisis. But it's because we've worked so hard to achieve something, thinking that it's going to give us peace, when peace was available to us through the entire journey. We just had to pursue it, own it, and choose it. And that's what I want to give the world. Maria, I want to give that to the world.
I'm mic dropping you on the Zoom. Like that was like 5 in a row. And that's what you are giving the world through who you are and your spirit and your work. There's another thing in the book. You talk about having the the servant's heart and a giving spirit. And these specific 5 areas you share when woven together help us create a rhythm of service. I think, dance and music is huge in my life. It's my roots. You have God, self, family, career, community, and the world. And I love that you wrote, when you serve God and yourself first, it fills up your cup, so you actually have something to give others. Tell me, how's that showing up for you these days? What's that looking like, again, amid all of this uncertainty and so much change that we're all experiencing?
It has been that root, that core for me, because there's been so much devastation. I've lost someone so very close to me, so
Oh, I'm
very
so
close.
sorry.
Thank you. Just, and you feel the heaviness of just everything that's going on in the world. But there's also this amazing commitment of service and giving, right? With everything that's going on socially, everything that's going on scientifically, our schools, just everything. And and so in this place and space, people have a heart to serve. But there's also the limitations that we're under. That's why we're here on Zoom, right? There's all of these limitations that we're dealing with. And so what comes out of that is we realize that there's many answers, but there's not just one answer, right? There's many answers, but there's not just one. And so when you get in that place with God and you allow yourself to get filled with you and what it's most important to you, then it gives you the clarity to be able to say, okay, now I may be able to serve through protesting, or I may be able to serve through making phone calls. I may be able to serve because I'm an entrepreneur. There's a friend who's working, so maybe her child, I need to help her pick up her child because I have more flexibility. And it doesn't have to be the big grand, I got to donate $1 million to a cause, or I have to lead the charge. It just means, how can you show up in the smallest ways that make the biggest impact? And when you get that clarity with God, when you get that integration with yourself, then you're able to have that kind of love and presence with your family. Because what happens is we spend our time at work or in the community, and our family is last on the list. They come in that third, and your family gives you that fulfillment, that pleasure, that laughter, that joy. Then you're able to go out into the world, whether it's in your community, whether it's at work. And so those 5 elements are so key. But the anchor to all of it is, if you can imagine, in my hand, this is a saucer and there's a cup, right? And so in that cup is what we're supposed to serve from. Well, the challenge is the cup is empty. And so when we serve from an empty cup, we're filled with resentment. How dare they call me again? Don't they know I have this challenge? What about me? What about me? Because your cup is empty. So your desire is to serve, but the cup is empty. So then you're serving with resentment. But when we get in that place with God, when we get in that place with ourselves, then our cup is filled. And then what happens, if you can imagine like water in the cup, and it's pouring over the cup, and then it's pouring over the saucer, then we're able to serve from our overflow. So here's where our family, our community, our work environment, they're supposed to receive from our overflow. But what happens is we never fill our cup first. And so when we fill that cup, when we fill the cup for ourselves, and people then can be served from our overflow, then that's when we're able to just keep flowing and keep flowing. But that empty cup, and I say this to women all the time, especially women, is we have to begin to serve from our power and not from our brokenness. Service is not about being a martyr. Service is not about making sure that you're absolutely depleted and now you're supposed to pick yourself up just to function because you've given everything away. Service is supposed to be from that overflow. Service is supposed to be from not your brokenness, but from where your power lies. So I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's such an important piece, because especially now with everything that's going on, we have to empower ourselves to serve, or we're going to burn out. And where we are right now, we are needed for the long haul. This
That's
is not
right.
a short run. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, no, that's been, I think, in my own experience, continuing to try and pay attention to having compassion for me and for everyone, knowing how challenging everyone's unique experiences are right now. And sometimes you don't know what's happening in their families, and you don't know what's happening on the front lines for them, having everyone in the same house, the schedules, not a lot of childcare, there's just so many layers of pain and frustration and turmoil that people can be going through. And I think it's so vital for us to extend extra compassion for ourselves and other people, that extra understanding, that extra layer of love and empathy, to know that people they're trying their best. They're trying their best right now, and you're trying your best. And it's like, just taking that moment. I love to wrap on the power of having faith in God's plan. Because again, I feel like that fits into this moment. So many folks and human beings in general, right? We're so desirous of like, well, what's going to happen? What's the next couple of months, or what's the plan, and how is this going to turn out? And I think all of us are very intimate with the fact right now that we don't know. That uncertainty.
Massive uncertainty. And this is really the place where we get to, I think, flex those faith muscles. So I would just love to hear you tell us about, and I want to share something that you wrote, because I highlighted it and wrote it down. Once we surrender to God's plan for our lives, we find peace in the overflow and joy in the abundance of being overwhelmed. God never gives you a dream that matches your budget. He's not checking your bank account. He's checking your faith, all your words. So tell us about embracing the fact that, you know what, we are not the COOs of the universe. Oh my gosh. The eighth principle is the courage to be faithful. And it's about healing. Because the only way you can truly experience exponential living is to genuinely have that massive faith. And faith in God, that's one, but also faith in the process. And being able to understand that it's not going to always go as we had planned. Like, if anything goes the way you had planned, then you just literally missed the whole boat. Because it's never but I would say you literally were only on step 2 of a 10-point plan, right? And again, my favorite book says, I know the plans for your life, plans to prosper you, to give you hope in a future. And so when we are able to really understand that the end of the story is not right now, like we're still in the midst of the story. But the key to that, Marie, is being present in the moment. Like, one of the biggest challenges we have is we think that our presence is enough. Our presence is enough, but it's not. We have to be present. And so when you're present in every moment, what that allows you to do is be empowered, so that basically the drive you have to accomplish something else won't rob you of the joy of what you've already achieved. Never let the drive for what you want to accomplish rob you of the joy of what you've already achieved. And so that's that faith, that being present right now. But what happens is we're so concerned, well, if I don't do this and I don't do that, and if I don't do this and I don't, well, what if this is going to happen? Well, this means this, or if it's not happening right now, microwave society, if it's not happening right now, then it's not going to happen tomorrow. And I learned this. I didn't learn it because of some philosophical breakthrough, like I got all the answers. I learned it in my most broken place in life. And that was trying to write this book. I literally lost everything. I mean, I lost everything. And in this whole process, it was like, but I got to keep writing. Well, write what? Like, what are you going to write? But what I realized is, if I could just be honest and authentic about this journey of what this looks like, and I just kept believing in faith, that if I could just hold on to my passion for people to understand the value of peace and clarity and courage, if I could just hold on in the midst of my own brokenness and be authentic and true, if I could just be present in every moment, knowing that the power I have is in this present moment, that was going to give me the ability to be vulnerable enough to trust the process. So when we have the faith to trust the process, that empowers us to understand that I have another opportunity to get up tomorrow and keep going. Because the thing is, all this, Kay, because a lot of people say to me, but Sheri, you say that because you've got this and you're doing this and you're doing that. Yeah, but I wrote those words when I had nothing. I wrote those words when I was broke and broken. I wrote those words and I experienced this from a place of absolute lack in the natural, personally, emotionally, spiritually, financially. And so that's why the passion of this can work for you too. Because I'm my first and most important client. Like all I'm doing is sharing what has worked for me. And hopefully, prayerfully, when you apply it, it will continue to work for you too. And that's the power of faith, is that every day, if I can just stay present, and if I can be present, it'll give me the joy I need. And that joy is my strength to keep going.
Boom. You just said it, did it, underlined it, highlighted it, sparkled it, bedazzled it, and maybe confettied it right there. Sheri, you are just a gift. Is there anything else that you want to leave us with today? By the way, everyone, so obviously she's dropping a lot of wisdom. If you don't have this, you need to get Exponential Living. Sheri is just a gift, but let me hand the mic back to you, my love.
I just want to say that for me, and in that book, the drive for me was I didn't want a transaction, meaning I didn't want people to pick the book up, read it, and put it on the shelf. Like I genuinely wanted transformation. I wanted people to highlight it and rabbit ear it. And the greatest gift is when people come to me and say, oh my God, your book is sitting on my nightstand, right? It's there. Because these principles are literally a lifestyle. These principles are genuinely rooted in the reality that peace is the new success. Peace is the new success. And when we get to that place where we are pursuing peace, choosing clarity, and living courageously, there's nothing we can't accomplish. There's nothing we can't accomplish. There's no mountain we can't climb. There's no brokenness we can't heal. There is nothing we can't accomplish. But more importantly, it empowers us to own our greatness and own our value. And that is the greatest gift that I think any of us and what we do, Marie, that we can give to people, is that owning your value, owning your greatness empowers you to be able to take this journey called life and win at every level, because it is going to be a battle. It is a battle. So thank you. I love you and the conversations you have. I just love the way you bring out the best in everyone you talk to. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Sheri. You are such a gift to this world. And I want to thank you for your work. And again, I'm going to keep choosing and prioritizing peace. And I'm just going to hear your voice in my ear when we do it. And I'm excited to, we got some music talk to have too. We'll have that on Instagram.
Yes.
Taking it back to our favorite yes. time. You are lovely. For everyone, you have to get Sheri's book. And Sheri, if they want to come check you out online, where's the best place that they can come find you?
Yes, I would love to connect on Instagram, which is Sheri Riley, SheriRiley. And also, I would love for you to join my Exponential Living community at SheriRiley.com.
Beautiful, my love. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now Sheri and I would love to hear from you. I'm really curious. Are you into this as much as I am, prioritizing your peace? Or if there were other insights or ahas from this episode, I want to hear about it in the comments. Now, as always, the best conversations happen over at marieforleo.com. So head on over there and leave a comment now. And if you're not already, please subscribe to our email list and become an MF Insider. I get to love you up each and every week in your inbox. Now, until next time, stay on your game and keep going for your dreams, because the world really does need that very special gift that only you have. Thank you so much for tuning in to Marie TV and the Marie Forleo podcast, and I will catch you next time. Hey, you having trouble bringing your dreams to life? Well, guess what? The problem isn't you. It's not that you're not hardworking or intelligent or deserving. It's that you haven't yet installed the one key belief that will change it all. Everything is figureoutable. It's my new book, and you can order it now at everythingisfigureoutable.com.